Why, hello there, friends. It's Emma here, the Bookish Princess. Welcome to a very vacation-y July reading wrap-up. I am on vacation right now. We're near Fort Myers, Florida at an Airbnb, this beautiful space. It has very Italian vibes. We just went to the Everglades yesterday. We did a boat tour of the 10,000 Islands, and it was so beautiful. So I'm happy to report that I have been doing some excellent vacation reading. I've been getting out of my reading slump / reading lag, and I just brought my Kindle, but I've been reading lots of lovely things on my Kindle. It was kind of hard to leave my physical books behind, but when you're traveling, when you're on a plane, really Kindle cannot be beat. This is a very old Kindle Fire. I've had this, have I had this for 10 years? I've had this for quite a while. Maybe not 10 years. I think 2016 is when I got this, I think. But it certainly has served me very well, and especially for traveling. There are so many old books that you can get essentially for free, or you can even like get the PDF and email it to yourself. If you get the PDF from Gutenberg and email it to your Kindle, it works out really well. You didn't even have to, lug along Anna Karenina, which I did put on my Kindle. So I thought I would let you guys know what we've been reading. We're actually only partway through the vacation, so I will try to film another reading vlog clip a little later. We're going to be staying at the Don Cesar on the beach, which should be really fun, so get some more fun beach reading in. I have to admit, my reading picks are just my usual reading, my usual TBR. They're not really like beach reads. Anyway, let's start at the beginning. I did finish rereading Sense and Sensibility, which was fun, for JaneAustenJuly. I did not yet make it to Jane Austen's Genius Guide to Life, and that was a physical book, which I left behind at home, so I might have to try to read that like really quick at the very end of JaneAustenJuly, or maybe we'll save that for August. And Vivian, that was my other JaneAustenJuly pick. That's by Mariah Edgeworth, who was one of Jane Austen's favorite authors. I read The Absentee by Mariah Edgeworth earlier this year, and it was so good. Just the writing was amazing. It's about a young man who is going to inherit an estate in Ireland, but he's kind of been brought up in England, and the way Irish history and the Irish, turmoil of the period was woven into this story was just fantastic. Mariah Edgeworth was an Irish writer. And Vivian does not seem to take place in Ireland, but it deals similarly with a young man who is coming into his inheritance and has a lot of expectations from the world, and it's trying to kind of find his way and is being tempted by all these vices, even though he's also been taught these virtues. He has a really great tutor, so I've really been enjoying it so far. I got this antique version that had The Absentee in one half and Vivian in the front half, but I didn't bring it with me. I probably could find it on Gutenberg, but I do like reading that antique version, so I might just finish that when I get home. But I was really enjoying it as far as I got in it, and it was so fascinating because if you're reading Vivian and you don't want to spoil her, I'll just give a little bit of a spoiler warning. But in The Absentee, the young man is tempted to do the wrong thing, but ends up doing the right thing. And in Vivian, the young man is kind of just a little bit more of a drifting soul in the wind. He hates to say no. He doesn't have a strength of character where, he can say no when he needs to. He can't stick to his convictions. And actually, you can see at the beginning of the book, that's kind of what the theme is going to be. Mariah Edgeworth is kind of moralistic. I feel like it's one of those cases where Jane Austen shows and Mariah Edgeworth tells, and the way she tells it is beautifully written. Her language is incredible. It's so fun to hear her mentioning like things of the Regency period that contemporary readers would have picked up on. The way if a book written today mentioned a modern singer or something, everyone would know who that was. But if someone reads it in 200 years and they've all forgotten who that singer was, or that common knowledge was, they have to like go look it up. For instance, there was one just aside that mentioned a character from Richard Sheridan play, which Richard Sheridan was like the Oscar Wilde of the Regency period. He was so funny. I want to read more of his plays. But it was so interesting that she just mentioned that in passing, and most modern readers probably would not know who that was unless they had happened to have read the Richard Sheridan play. Anyway, I'm excited to finish Vivian. It is really beautiful writing, and it's a fun foil. I already gave the spoiler warning. So it's a fun foil to The Absentee. There's similar plots that went in two different directions. To be honest, I'm really glad to know that Vivian has a sad ending. I feel like if I did not know that at the beginning, I would be kind of annoyed at the ending. I like spoilers, I will confess that. But Sense and Sensibility was so delightful. It's so interesting with Jane Austen. Different things speak to me every time. I did just recently do my Jane Austen ranking video, which if you have not yet read, stop watching this video and go watch it. I'm so proud of the way it turned out. I think it was really beautiful, and there were a lot of thoughts in there that like I've said kind of sort of about like how I feel about Jane Austen and what I think is most important in Jane Austen, and like how the romances are so much more than just a romance, and you know what really is at the heart of what is important and what makes Jane so timeless and so powerful. And so it was really fun to talk about that. I kind of collected those thoughts, I think, in a way that I hadn't quite before, which actually, so I read Brideshead Revisited last month and didn't care for it, and it was funny how that kind of helped me focus my thoughts on Jane Austen a little bit more than I ever had. But on Sense and Sensibility, different things were standing out to me this reread. Which partly were things I talked about in the video. I'll give a spoiler warning for Sense and Sensibility. We are going to spoil Sense and Sensibility right now. But yeah, one of the things that stood out to me this read through was Willoughby's worthlessness. I mean, he's one of those characters that like you want to like, and of course he sweeps Marianne off her feet, but ultimately Jane Austen sees right through him, calls a spade. The way that Eleanor in particular describes him, the description of after the letter, when Eleanor finally reads this letter that Willoughby wrote, she paused over it for some time with indignant astonishment, then read it again and again, but every perusal only served to increase her abhorrence of the man, and so bitter were her feelings against him that she dared not trust herself to speak, lest she might wound Marianne still deeper by treating their disengagement not as a loss to her of any possible good, but as an escape from the worst and most irremediable of all evils, a connection for life with an unprincipled man, as a deliverance the most real, a blessing the most important. The way she describes Willoughby like just puts him in his place. Of course, Eleanor later softens a little bit when she hears Willoughby explain in person, which I was thinking in my video, the ranking video, I talked about what Marianne has to learn and how she grows. But I was thinking Eleanor is so together that what does she need to learn? She grows too, though. All Jane Austen heroes and heroines grow. That is what sets them apart. And I think that for Eleanor, she's a little bit too buttoned up. Like she manages to, keep her disappointment about Edward to herself, because she feels like her mother and her sister won't be able to support her in her desire to, get over it and be, handle it calmly. But the kind of flip side of that is that when Marianne is going through this difficult situation, she doesn't know until quite late on that Eleanor is herself suffering. She just tells herself, well, Eleanor just doesn't feel it that deeply, which of course is not the case. Eleanor just has learned to control it. It's not that she's not feeling it. Of course, Marianne doesn't really take that lesson to heart right away, but she does eventually, really see Eleanor's example as what she should have done, what she should have tried to do, how she should have tried to react to Willoughby. And I think Eleanor kind of starts to realize that a little bit more openness from her about her feelings can actually help the people around her, help Marianne. And I feel like that is why Austen gives us that scene of Eleanor, hearing Willoughby's confession, because it's almost like Eleanor, everything she said right now about Willoughby's letter is right. But at the same time, she learns to open herself up to sympathy a little bit more, maybe. Is that the right way to describe it? I don't know. I'm still cogitating on these thoughts. But yeah, Willoughby is the worst, pretty much. But the crazy thing is, though, people do send letters like this. Or text messages today. It's just so accurate to life. People are so selfish. Because in that other quotation I read in the other video, Eleanor points to selfishness as the essential sin of Willoughby. There's a funny line about Fanny Dashwood, Eleanor's sister-in-law, and how she was annoyed when anything better of her was expected. Like when someone expected her to do something like kind and good, that just annoyed her more and made her be more nasty. And like you would think that people would, when they're asked to be better than who they are, they would like try to rise to the occasion, but a lot of people just sort of sink lower. However, you still have to have sympathy for them, which is maybe what Eleanor learns a little bit. Jane Austen is just such a delight. So I have been working my way through that list of summer TBR that I did in the live stream with some other booktubers, and one of the books on the list was Journey to the River Sea by Ibbotson. I read A Company of Swans earlier this year. I feel like I've mentioned that book a lot. It was really interesting. It wasn't perfect. Like I had some issues with it, but there were a lot of beautiful passages. And one thing I loved about it was the setting. It's set part of it on the Amazon Amazon, the River Amazon, and in Manaus near the rubber plantations, and this book has that same exact setting. It's so funny. A Company of Swans is for adults. Journey to the River Sea is for children. And that definitely gives them some differences. But in a lot of ways, it's like the same elements rearranged, because like there's a British estate back home and the heir to the estate, and like just a lot of moving pieces and a lot of different characters, which I found so delightful. Really, this is one of my favorite of Ibbotson's, I think, that I've read so far. I loved the suspense and, like I said, all the different elements and the beauty of the Amazon, the way it captivates the characters. At the very beginning, our heroine, Maya, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, she's lost her parents and she learns that she's going to be going to live with some relatives in Manaus, along the Amazon, along the River Sea, because apparently it's such a huge river, they call it the River Sea. When we visited the Everglades, we learned that apparently the original name for the Everglades in Florida was supposed to be Riverglades, because the whole southern tip of Florida is basically, you know, a wetlands, but technically it's a river because there's a little bit of a current coming from Lake Okeechobee. That might not be the name of the lake. I'll try to put the name of the lake on the screen here. But over time, people kind of dropped the R, and instead of Riverglades, they said Everglades, which to me makes sense because it doesn't really look much like a river at all, and it does feel like it's just everlasting swamp. So Everglades does work better. And I shouldn't call it a swamp. Before we came, I was thinking of it as a swamp, but honestly, it's so much more beautiful than a swamp, and the 10,000 Islands were beautiful, and we're going to the Shark Valley Overlook tomorrow, so that should be really fun. Anyway, it's just fun with the River Sea and then the Riverglades, the Everglades. So this is the quotation of the character. She goes to the library to read about the Amazon when she learns that she'll be going there. Those who think of the Amazon as a green hell, she read in an old book with a tattered spine, because her classmates have all been helpful in doing research and telling her about scary spiders and snakes and natives, and just that it's a terrible, scary jungle. Those who think of the Amazon as a green hell bring only their own fears and prejudices to this amazing land, for whether a place is a hell or a heaven rests in yourself, and those who go with courage and an open mind may find themselves in paradise. That is definitely the theme of the book, because there's definitely some difficult people who are not enjoying the Amazon at all, but Maya comes with an open mind, and in spite of all the unpleasantness in her way, she really finds joy and finds so much beauty. Maya was a delight, but by far and away, my favorite character was Miss Minton, the governess. Just, oh my gosh, 10 out of 10. Miss Minton is amazing. When Maya first meets her, she's got this scary umbrella, and like she just looks kind of scary. They say that her black felt hat was tethered to her sparse bun of hair with a fearsome hat pin in the shape of a Viking spear. It's copied from the armor of Eric the Hammerer, said Miss Minton, following Maya's gaze. One can kill with a hat pin like that. Just so fantastic. I feel like so many of the things that I copied, for so many of the quotations I copied were Miss Minton's. Here's another one. This is when they're on board the ship going to the Amazon, and there's some play actors there. I rank Shakespeare as second only to God, she said, which is why I'm going to my cabin. So I'm not sure that those playwrights were all that good. If you want something enough, you usually get it, but you have to take what goes with it. Miss Minton was a delight, but honestly so many other things in that book were a delight as well. I would highly, highly recommend it. Just probably a good place to start with Eva Ibbotson, actually. Did it win an award? I feel like it should have won an award if it didn't. Anyway, definitely a summer reading highlight so far. And then I do have on here Anna Karenina, hoping to make a little more progress. I've made a little bit more progress. I was letting myself do some fun things, Journey to the River Sea, and then I was also reading this Kerry by Grace Livingston Hill. I've mentioned Grace Livingston Hill before. She was a Christian writer who wrote, I believe, in the 20s, 30s, and just very gentle romances, but with a very healthy dose of faith in there, which I find to be so beautiful. To be honest, the plot is kind of all over the place and absurd, but I like the romance. It's sweet. I like the characters and the settings. This particular one deals with publishing a book. The character's father has written this incredible scientific treatise that she's hoping to get published, and she also goes on a transatlantic journey to New York, from London to New York, and so we get a taste of New York. Just fun, light summer reading. Yeah, I just love how the character in every difficult situation reminds herself to rely on God, and that is really where her strength comes from, and I found that to be a really beautiful reminder. At one point, the characters are watching a beautiful sunset, and one of them says, "I've sometimes thought that it might be something like this when the Lord Jesus comes back again. A quiet evening, hushed in twilight, as if waiting in expectancy. A great star burning, just as when he came before, only a more wonderful star than any we can see now." There is a part where her father, who'd been writing the book, talks about the Bible and how he wishes that he had studied the Bible more carefully before he went and studied science. "I think if I had my life to live over, I would begin with this old book and never touch science until I had mastered at least its possibilities, searched out its hidden meanings, got a key to its rare language of types and patterns, which I have come to feel are hidden here away from common sight, as much as ever the secrets of life and creation and power is hidden in nature." So that the Bible's rare language of types and patterns, I just thought that was a beautiful idea. The Grace Livingston Hill can definitely be a bit schmaltzy at times, but I do feel like it's just a really enjoyable read as well. But yes, now that I finished that, I think I am going to get myself to work on Anna Karenina. I did also download A Midsummer Night's Dream. That was already on my TBR, but inspired by Miss Minton, I feel like I definitely have to get some more Shakespeare in there. Cesar in St. Pete's Beach, the Pink Palace. It's a kind of adorable pink hotel. I'm afraid I did not choose a good time of day to film because the sun is coming like that, so no matter what, I'm going to be in shadow. But I've been sitting and reading A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare, which has been very fun. There were some quotations from this in Emma, Jane Austen's Emma, and I thought it'd be fun to reread it because it had been a while. Of course, the most famous quotation probably, here Lysander says, "I me, for aught that I could ever read, could ever hear by tale or history, the course of true love never did run smooth. But either it was different in blood, O cross too high to be enthralled to low, or else misgraft in respect of years, O spite too old to be engaged to young, or else it stood upon the choice of friends, O hell to choose love by another's eyes. Or if there were a sympathy in choice, war, death, or sickness did lay siege to it, making it momentary as a sound, swift as a shadow, short as any dream. Brief as the lightning and the collied night, that in a spleen unfolds both heaven and earth, and ere man hath power to say, behold, the jaws of darkness do devour it up. So quick bright things come to confusion." All of those similes, the brief as lightning, short as any dream, which is so beautiful. Shakespeare is really one of a kind. Shakespeare is so good too with that quick back and forth, like that. Some of that was Lysander and Helena, and here is Helena and Hermia. Hermia is in love with Lysander. So the first one was Lysander and Hermia. Helena is in love with Demetrius. So this is Hermia and Helena. So Helena says, "Oh, teach me how you look, and with what art you sway the motion of Demetrius' heart. I frown upon him, yet he loves me still. Oh, that your frowns would teach my smiles such skill. I give him curses, yet he gives me love. Oh, that my prayers could such affection move. The more I hate, the more he follows me. The more I love, the more he hateth me. His folly, Helena, is no fault of mine." I love that. "None but your beauty would that fault were mine. His folly is no fault of mine." Hermia has got it down. Helena honestly needs to get it together. If he's not into her, he's not worth her time. Yes, A Midsummer Night's Dream, very fun to read in the summer. And it's always fun to come back to Shakespeare and just immerse yourself in his beautiful language. Well, friends, here I am with another vacation reading blog clip for you, this time from Disney's Contemporary Resort. We're just here for one night. We are in the club level, which is really fun. We just went over to the Magic Kingdom today. We got to ride the Tron ride. We got our lightning lane, and actually we might try for another lightning lane for tonight. Not lightning lane, what's the other one? I can't even keep track of the words. Virtual queue. There are too many different ways to sign up for FastPass. FastPass don't even exist anymore, basically. The crowds in the parks, like online, I feel like they've been saying they're less. And the thing is, the crowds are like acceptably crowded, I would say, like manageably crowded, instead of insanely, frustratingly crowded where you can't move, which is like what it normally is in the summer. So it's still crowded, it's just not as absurdly crowded as usual. But I've been enjoying the resort. I'm doing some more reading. I'm happy to report that I did finish Midsummer Night's Dream. It was a very fun summer read. I love the descriptions that like Oberon and Titania, the two fairies, give of their fairy activities. Here's one of them. Once I sat upon a promontory and heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back, uttering such dulcet and harmonious breath that the rude sea grew civil at her song, and certain stars shot madly from their spheres to hear the sea maid's music. I was actually thinking of the Shakespeare sonnet that it's not actually in Sense and Sensibility, but in the movie version they incorporate it into the story, and it works really well. It's 116, that love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark which looks on tempests and is not shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown though its height be taken. Anyway, that's not the love you see in Midsummer Night's Dream, because of course Oberon is just telling Puck about this love and idleness flower which can magically be put on people's eyelids and change their love. And really all of the characters in this, you know, they seem very fickle, although I guess there are fairies at work, so you can't really blame them. But I've been trying to trace some similarities between the characters in Midsummer Night's Dream and the characters in Emma. Because last summer when I read Much Ado About Nothing, I felt like there were so many similarities to Pride and Prejudice. And those were very more clear-cut similarities. But Midsummer Night's Dream is mentioned twice in Emma, so I was like, okay, there have to be some similarities here. And I totally think there are. I mean, the most obvious one is, why are Hermia and Helena's names so similar? Helena goes with Demetrius, right? Here, I just finished rereading this and I like can't guess. Hermia and Lysander are a couple, and Demetrius and Helena are a couple, kinda. Helena is in love with Demetrius, Demetrius scorns her, Demetrius is in love with Hermia instead. So if you're familiar with the Emma plot, you're probably already seeing some parallels. Spoiler warning for Emma too, I guess. Helena is kind of like Harriet Smith, because Harriet Smith is in love with Mr. Elton and he scorns her, and even for a long time after he obviously scorns her, Harriet still is into him, and it's like, oh Harriet, you just gotta get over this. Mr. Elton is in love with Emma instead, just like Demetrius is in love with Hermia. Although I was thinking Lysander and Hermia, like where's the connection there? Because they're not really Emma and Knightley, but the way Lysander, he gets the love and idleness put on his eyes and he falls in love with Helena for a while instead. And I was thinking that reminds me of how Frank Churchill pretends to be in love with Emma to throw off the scent so that no one suspects, but really he is engaged to Jane Fairfax. So the way Lysander is in love with Helena for a while, it's like how Frank Churchill pretends to be in love with Emma, and Jane Fairfax gets annoyed just as Hermia gets annoyed. Although of course Lysander's not pretending, and also in that scenario we're double casting Emma as Helena and Hermia. But like I said, I can't really decide where we would put Emma and Mr. Knightley. Are they Theseus and Hippolyta or Hippolyta? Or maybe they're Oberon and Titania? I love the names Oberon and Titania. Anyway, tell me your thoughts of how you would cast the Emma characters in Midsummer Night's Dream. What kind of parallels do you see there? It is pretty ironic the way Emma says that that famous line, "The course of true love never did run smooth," which is of course from Midsummer Night's Dream. She says that, you know, oh well, actually it does run smooth at Hartfield. And it's like, no, not really, Emma. To say the truth, reason and love keep little company together nowadays. The more the pity that some honest neighbors will not make them friends. Nay, I can gleek upon occasion. What does gleek mean? I need to look that one up. Great Shakespearean insult. What hempen homespuns have we swaggering here? I love that. I had forgotten how this play, like the action is kind of sped up because it all wraps up in 4 acts, and then the 5th act is this pretend absurd play put on by Bottom and his associates, in which Theseus, like the main characters, just mock it the whole time. which I think Shakespeare must have had a fun time with that. Like, did he hear some of the nobles who watched his play like mock his own plays, or maybe he mocked his fellow playwrights? He describes the poet. The poet's eye in a fine frenzy rolling doth glance from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven, and as imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to shapes, and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. Such tricks hath strong imagination. If it would but apprehend some joy, it comprehends some bringer of that joy, or in the night, imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed to bear. Yes, the poet is ranked with the lunatics and the lovers in terms of trustworthiness and sanity. I finished Midsummer Night's Dream. I've also made very good progress in Anna Karenina. I am through chapter 10, so that is excellent. There's a scene where they go ice skating, which in this Florida heat, it is kind of fun to read about the Russians ice skating. Let's see, have I highlighted any quotations yet? Levin is listening to a discussion between his brother, half-brother, and a philosopher professor. As he listened to his brother's argument with the professor, he noticed that they connected scientific questions with spiritual problems, that at times they almost touched on the latter, but every time they were close upon what seemed to him the chief point, they promptly beat a hasty retreat and plunged again into a sea of subtle distinctions, reservations, quotations, allusions, and appeals to authorities, and it was with difficulty that he understood what they were talking about, probably because they weren't talking about much, that they never wanted to come to the point. Anyway, I'm trying to keep myself motivated and just keep making progress in Anna Karenina, or the Newcomes. That's my Thackeray, but part of me wants to download something more fun and fluffy. I was gonna read a P.G. Wodehouse. That could be fun. We'll see what strikes me, but it is just very fun to chill and do some reading on vacation. We have a couple more days of our trip left. We're going to Universal for the first time ever. Of course, I will be vlogging it. I don't know when I'll get that video up. And I have the video of our Tron light cycle ride as well that I need to edit. Always more videos to edit than I have time for, but we'll get around to them eventually. The books and the reading vlogs tend to take precedence. It is always nice when I can do at least one a month and kind of keep on track. Should I do a sign off here? I don't know if I'll end up doing another clip or not. In case I don't, I will remind you to all give this video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. I'll probably try to do a reading wrap up blog post over my Substack, bookishprincess.substack.com. So make sure you go check that out if you want to hear more quotations and more thoughts from my vacation reads. What are your favorite books to read on vacation, or what are some fun books you've been reading this summer? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. I'll talk to you guys again soon, and until then, stay bookish. Bye. I've just been enjoying a morning stroll here at Riverside. We are staying in the Oak Manor section. Usually we stay in Alligator Bight, so it's fun to be in these beautiful mansions, and we also are staying in a royal room, which is fun. Although it's kind of ironic because we had our one park day, and now we're actually going to go to Universal for a day. It's going to be the coolest Disney snob does Universal for the first time, but it should be fun. Anyway, I don't know when I'll get to that vlog, but I thought I would tell you all what I've been reading this morning. I've been reading my Magnificat. Magnificat is like a monthly prayer book. You can get printed copies of it. I just do it on my phone because I feel like once the month is passed, I never know what to do with the old copies because they're dated. So it's nice to have it on my phone. It's kind of similar to Litany of the Hours. They have prayers for the morning, the mass readings, prayers for the evening, for night, and then they also have a meditation of the day. And they always pick such interesting, varied sources for the meditation of the day. Like sometimes they have modern writers and thinkers. These are Catholics, but then they also, of course, go way back in time through the rich history of the church, and they pick out such interesting saints and writers. Today's is from Blessed Humbert, who lived in the 1200s and was a French Dominican friar. And he is actually quoting from another book. See, Magnificat is always giving me ideas of spiritual Catholic things to read. He's quoting from a book by Bernard of Clairvaux. He says in his book On Consideration, which means much the same as meditation, Bernard of Clairvaux says this: consideration, first of all, purifies the mind in which it arises. It then governs the feelings, directs actions, corrects successes, controls our behavior, makes our life worthy and orderly, resolves doubts, strengthens what is slack, gathers together what is scattered, scrutinizes what is hidden, investigates the truth, tests what is plausible, determines what is false and illusory, plans our actions, and thinks over what we have done, in order that there may remain nothing in the mind which is either uncorrected or in need of consideration, or in need of correction. It is consideration that foresees trouble in peaceful times, but which heeds not the troubles when they come, thus showing both prudence and courage. Isn't that beautiful? I've heard of Bernard of Clairvaux. I'm trying to think if I've read many of the saints. It's always so fun to go back in time and read the, spiritual classics, the doctors of the church. I can't remember now. I don't think I've read anything by Bernard of Clairvaux, so obviously need to fix that. And Blessed Humbert is so fun, the way Magnificat introduces you to so many different writers and saints that you'd never heard of. Alright, I think I'm going to go walk over to the Riverside Mill, and we might get some breakfast there, although we were also thinking of going over to Animal Kingdom Lodge to get some breakfast. Our Universal Day is tomorrow. So I probably won't be doing much reading tomorrow. We're going to be running around and trying to experience Harry Potter World and all that. Although actually that is kind of making me think I should reread Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan though. I'm more like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek. But I do like Harry Potter, and it's been a long time since I reread those books. They are incredibly imaginative, amazing worlds. We have actually been rewatching some of the movies, so I think that I will have to do at least some rereading of Harry Potter after visiting Harry Potter World. Let's go see Martin and Osa. Our friends. Here's mine. Most iconic photo of Osa ever. And here's the book right here. These are recreations, I guess, of characters' wands. That's pretty. See?
Whose is that?
Serafina, somebody? I've never even heard of this person.
No idea. Does it call to you?
I know.
Is that your wand?
I shouldn't let myself buy a wand.
I shouldn't let myself.
I'm not a big enough Harry Potter fan, but I want one. How can you stand here with these boxes
And not be tempted.
and not want a wand? Flourish and block. Oh, look, here's another of these guys. Omens, oracles, and the goat. Secrets of the Darkest Art, the healer's helpmate, the decline of pagan magic, the tales of Deedle the Bard. Lots of great titles here. Oh, look at that, Gilderoy Lockhart, of course. I have to show you what I got at the Quidditch store. I saw these in the window and I just thought they were cute.